evening everyone on this beautiful evening. It's time for the young adults bedtime story, and today I was really lucky that I was able to choose my own Mr. Men book to read to you all, and very aptly I chose Little Miss Chatterbox. So get comfy and I will start to read the story. Little Miss Chatterbox by Roger Hargreaves. Little Miss Chatterbox talked more than a lot. She talked all the time, day in and day out, week after week, month after month, year in and year out. She never stopped. She didn't know it, but she even talked in her sleep. She had a brother. I bet you can guess what his name was, can't you? That's right, Mr. Chatterbox. She looks a bit like him, don't you think? You should have heard them when they got together. You couldn't get a word in edgeways, or sideways, or anyways. Have you ever heard about somebody being able to talk the hind leg off a donkey? Well, Mr. Chatterbox could talk both hind legs off a donkey, and his sister could talk the hind leg off an elephant. Now, this story is about the time Little Miss Chatterbox decided to get herself a job, which she did, in a bank in Happy Land. At 10 o'clock one Monday morning, Mr. Happy strolled into the Happy to Lend You bank in the middle of Happy Town. He took out his checkbook, wrote a cheque and went to the counter. Behind the counter, on her first morning at work, stood Little Miss Chatterbox. She smiled at Mr. Happy. Mr. Happy smiled back. "Good morning," he said cheerfully. "Well," Little Miss Chatterbox, taking a deep breath. "For the time of year it is a good morning, but not quite as good as the morning we had yesterday, and I dare say tomorrow morning will be an even better morning, but it's quite a good morning for Monday morning, and she went on and on and on and on until it was time for the bank to shut. Mr. Happy was still standing there with his mouth open in amazement. He'd been there for hours. "And now," continued Little Miss Chatterbox, "it's time for the bank to shut and time for me to go home. So goodbye and nice talking to you," and she went home, leaving poor Mr. Happy without any money. The following morning, she was fired. She got herself another job in a restaurant, the Eat-A-Lot. It was Tuesday morning, and at midday, Mr. Greedy walked into the restaurant and sat himself down at his usual corner table. He always ate there on Tuesdays because that was the day they served extra large portions. The waitress came up to take his order. "What's the soup of the day?" Mr. Greedy asked the waitress. "Well," said Little Miss Chatterbox, for she was the waitress, "the soup of the day is tomato, but we also have other soups on the menu such as oxtail and vegetable and chicken noodle. But we do have lots of other things to start with such as..." And she went on and on and on until midnight. Mr. Greedy was still sitting there, listening in amazement. He'd been there for 12 hours, listening. "And now," continued Little Miss Chatterbox, "it's time for the Eat-A-Lot restaurant to shut and time for me to go home. So goodbye, nice talking to you," and she went home, leaving poor Mr. Greedy feeling rather empty. The next morning she was fired. The same thing happened all week long. On Thursday morning she was fired from her job as an assistant in a hat shop. Miss Splendid went into the shop to buy herself a new hat, but she couldn't. "Oh, madam, I've just the hat for you, and I know you're going to love it because it's pink and pink is your colour," and it was all talk and no hat. On Friday morning, she was fired from her job as a secretary to Mr. Uppity. Mr. Uppity, incidentally, was the richest man in the world. I just thought you'd like to know. But poor Mr. Uppity didn't make any money the day that Little Miss Chatterbox was working for him. Oh no. "Oh, Mr. Uppity, I've never worked in an office before, and isn't it exciting? And wouldn't you like a cup of coffee? And are you as rich as everybody says you are?" And it was all talk and no work. But this story has a happy ending, because at the very end of that week, Little Miss Chatterbox managed to find herself a job that suited her down to the ground and up to the sky. That Saturday evening, Mr. Chatterbox was at home in Chatterbox Cottage, which was where he lived. Mr. Chatterbox was cross because his watch had stopped and he had arranged to meet Little Miss Sunshine at 7 o'clock and he had no idea what the time was. So he decided to telephone the speaking clock to find out what time it was. He dialed the number. At the third stroke, it will be 6:25 and 15 seconds. Little Miss Chatterbox took a deep breath. Pip, pip, pip. At the third stroke, it will be 6:25 and 20 seconds. Pip, pip, pip. That's funny, Mr. Chatterbox said to himself. That sounds just like my sister. I really hope you enjoyed that story of Little Miss Chatterbox today. There's definitely a moral to this story, where we can always think about what we're going to say before we say it, and say too much. I can certainly learn from that. There's lots of verses in the Bible that also help us with this. They show us how we can use words to encourage one another. In the book of Proverbs, there are actually 2 verses today that I want to read to you. The first one is Proverbs 11, verse 12. It is foolish to belittle a neighbour. A person with good sense remains silent. Now that doesn't mean that we don't have to talk to each other, because at the moment, in this time, it's so important to be talking to our loved ones. But we can always think about what we're going to say to them to make sure that we are lifting up their world. The second verse is also from Proverbs. It's from chapter 20 and it's verse 15. Wise speech is rarer and more valuable than gold and rubies. I'm sure that when we look back on those memories that we have, especially with the people that we've been spending this time with, it have been those special little moments when we've shared a funny memory with each other or have told our family and friends that we can't wait to see them again. I hope that Little Miss Chatterbox has helped you learn how we can talk to each other with love in this hard time. Thanks for listening.